Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of For Every Response, sponsored by MSA Safety. I'm Catherine Levin and I'm the editor of Emergency Services Times. Last week I went to South Wales to observe Operation Tendley 2, a multi-agency road traffic collision exercise. Richard Paskell from South Wales Police invited me to observe the exercise. He's a DC working in the Capability Assurance Team, a regional team working across Dyfed, Powys, South Wales and Gwent. He is the lead planner for the exercise. I spoke to him and the leads for police, fire and ambulance, as well as Tim Johnson from Cardiff Uni, whose medical students also took part in the day. In this episode, you'll have to forgive the quality of the audio. I spoke to everyone outside, and with the exercise in full flow, there's a lot of background noise. But I like the authenticity of that, so bear with me. I've been to see another exercise in Wales, that last time in the Cardiff Training Centre for South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, so it seemed like a good idea to go along to this one. It was my first visit to Bridgend, so let's hear first from Richard, who told me all about the reason for the exercise that was 6 months in the planning, and he starts off by telling me where the name Tendley came from.
So we get a random generizer that gives us the name that we're going to use, and that name is then secured so it doesn't get reused.
Oh,
so sometimes they use colours and names, or colours or names and colours. They'll mix them up, and then that's your name associated to your exercise.
Oh, okay.
So because this is the second one, so we did Operation Tendley in Carmarthen in January, which involved a rail incident. So because this is the sort of sister incident to that, we called it Tendley 2.
Oh, okay, all right. And so in terms of what you've seen today, are you pleased with how it's gone?
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I mean, for me, right the way across the board, right from the beginning today, we had students from a college who were being taught how to apply makeup and moulage, which is all the simulated injuries from BBC Casualty. They were doing all the costumes on what they should wear for, to set the costumes up, right the way through then to us actually setting up the exercise, putting vehicles in specific places where we wanted them to achieve a result, and then calling all our emergency services colleagues in. So at each point, right the way up to now, the very end point of the exercise, there's been learning all the way through. And I think that's important for me, because if we haven't got any learning, I don't think we're testing the right thing, because we should have learning at every opportunity. And that's where we develop our training, develop our processes and our policies.
I don't think there are many exercises that involve makeup artists from the BBC. In fact, I saw an actor from Casualty being interviewed at the exercise. He was there to get some real-life insights from the Welsh services. Richard mentions the regional planning team, and watching the incident unfold is Inspector Tim Davis from Dyfed Powys Police. He runs the Capability Assurance Team for the regional coordination team that Richard works in. He told me, Tim that is, about how you put an exercise like this together, about the objectives and the learning process.
I'm responsible for the team that's designed the exercise, along with partners from fire and ambulance and the emergency medic. So it's been a team effort designing it as well.
Okay, how do you go about designing an exercise like this?
Well, where do you start really? You come up with a backstory and you look at what you want to test. What are your objectives? What do you want to get out of the exercise? Be that multi-agency working, JESIP principles, be it 10 Second Triage. You set your objectives really, and you kind of write your backstory around that.
Okay, all right. And so you mentioned lots of buzzwords there, so JESIP, so this is really multi-agency. I've never seen so many different vehicles in one place. How do you sort of test the principles to see they're actually working in practice?
Well, you can see it visibly at a sort of an incident like this. You can see if those commanders are co-locating and getting together in that huddle and making sure they've got that joint understanding at the scene of what's going on, joint understanding of the risk, and that the decisions are being made according to those conversations that are taking place. So no one agency is working on their own, then you know that JESIP is working.
Okay, so when you come back afterwards and discuss how it went, will you then test to see that it really did work?
Yeah, there's always got to be a debrief, there's got to be learning. If every exercise results in all positives and everybody's happy, then you probably missed the point. There has to be learning as well.
Yes.
And we take that learning, we can turn them into recommendations for future training.
Yes.
And then we can test again to see if that learning has been embedded.
Okay, so in terms of objectives for today, what are they in a nutshell?
I think overall it's the multi-agency JESIP. Is JESIP embedded? Does JESIP work at sea? Each individual agency have got their own objectives. I haven't got sight of them with me now.
Okay.
So,
all right.
they'll all have set their own objectives, what they'd like to achieve. But overall, I think you've got to look at sharing awareness of each other's specialist capabilities, which has come out of Manchester Arena Inquiry. Recommendation 51 was each agency should have an awareness of each other's specialist capabilities, and days like this give that opportunity for us to show what each agency can do. And as I say, JESIP, is JESIP embedded? Does it work? And are people, really bought into it?
It's no surprise to hear Tim talking about teamwork, a joint understanding of risk, and JESIP. And I was really taken by the phrase where he said, if no one agency is working on their own, we'll know that JESIP is working. And it's really gratifying to hear so much discussion about JESIP through the day, seeing how it's embedded in operations. Tim's quoting the Manchester Arena Inquiry as well. He knew the recommendation that applied. So this is all good stuff. So let's listen now to Scott Walker. He works for the Welsh Ambulance Service. He's locality manager in the emergency preparedness team. He spent the day directing staff, assessing the players and observing. I ask him what he's seeing in front of us as we stand behind the barrier, watching the action take place. He tells me all about how JESIP huddles work and talks about situational awareness.
You can see now where that lamppost is. We've got a bit of a JESIP huddle going on, which is really good to see.
Is that what that's going on there?
Yeah, so that's good. You can see lots of sort of tabars, the police commanders, ambulance commanders, fire service. So they should be doing those ideally every 15 minutes, especially in the early stages. So what we saw straight away was our frontline crew do that huddle, which is really good to see. So they don't have any formal operational commander training, but there's an expectation of when they're first on scene, they go and do that stuff early on and get a bit of a situational awareness picture. Okay. So we saw that early on, and now we have our trained commanders on scene. They've now taken over that role, which is what we would expect, and kind of having those meetings, going through the joint decision model with police and fire, understanding what we need to do, and hopefully do it.
Okay, so that's one huddle. You're saying there'll be other huddles going on?
So we have one in very early stages, and they will then, I suppose, they probably set a battle rhythm, what we call like a rhythm of meetings. Okay. So what are we now?
Same people each time?
So yeah, ideally they should be the same people. You may have, like where our first crew on scene got replaced with the operational commander. Right. You may get that early on, a change of face. But ideally now, they should be the same people in that huddle. Familiar faces, familiarity, all understand where we are, the picture.
Okay. How are they recording what they're doing?
So you see a couple of them are taking notes, contemporaneous notes in the logbook.
Is that electronic or on paper?
So I think what I can see there, a couple of them are on paper, manual by hand. Yeah. We do have some body cameras on as well. Okay. Some of our commanders also carry dictaphones, so just to assist. So in the Welsh Ambulance Service specifically, we don't have body cameras yet. Right. So we've given or told our commanders to look at what else they can use really to help them collate that information to write up in a formal logbook afterwards. All right. So yeah, there'll be probably a mixture there of note taking, body cameras and dictaphones as well. Okay, all right. And so they're recording that, so when they come to the huddle next time, do they go back to the notes and kind of say, right, where were we now? How does that work? Yeah, so every time they have that meeting, they should follow the joint decision model, which is the first step of that is information intelligence. Right. So, what happened 15 minutes ago, where were we and what has changed? So, quite a dynamic scene here. Potentially patients are going to be moved, there's going to be new numbers of patients, there's going to be new risk potentially if vehicles are stable or unstable, any fuel leaks. Yeah. So they should always have a quick recap of where they were and now what has changed, and then that will in turn change our risks and what our strategy will be, and then what else we need to do in the next 15-minute period before we meet again. Okay.
So lots in that one with Scott. He's talking about discussions happening every 15 minutes. He talks about the joint decision model and battle rhythm. These are all languages, the language of JESIP. But what I think is most interesting about this conversation is the thing about the body cameras and the different ways of recording the information. So there's paper, there's tablets, there's body cameras. Why aren't they all the same? I presume because they're all different services, they have different priorities about how they spend their money and how they decide to bring materials like this to an incident. But it does strike me that could be something that maybe all do the same thing, bring it all together, because every 15 minutes, you need to know what's happened last time. And if it's all on these different devices, then how do you get back to it? So anyway, just an observation from me. Let's move on and talk to Roger Megan. He is from South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. I've met him before. Roger was involved in the exercise I attended in Cardiff. He's a group manager, and it's his team that's responsible for setting up the play and coordinating the logistics for the day. I'll get his view on JESIP and ask about how services can free up so many staff to take part in days like this.
And so we were talking earlier about the JESIP huddles.
Yeah.
How do you find that they operate in this environment? Does it feel natural, the way that they come together to co-locate under the JESIP principles?
The more and more that we do these kinds of exercises and incidents practice, it gets better.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is what this exercise has been designed to do, is to bring those partners together, to encourage that JESIP working, that across the bonnet huddle, to identify each and every agency's objectives, make sure everybody's got enhanced situational awareness, and then obviously come up with a plan which will bring a safe and effective conclusion to the incident.
And the people who are here today, the players you called them, do they know that their role is to be in that huddle? Is that just comes with the role of incident commander? I mean, who gets to be there?
Generally, each agency will have designated bronze level commanders on scene.
Right.
So as you can see before you, police have obviously got their tabards on indicating their incident commanders. Our incident commanders likewise, and obviously the WAST and MedServ and EMERS doctors will have the same. So basically we get into a huddle, we'll all describe and discuss the objectives of the incident, obviously priorities, safety issues, hazards, make sure everybody's got a shared situational awareness, and then everybody can formulate a plan which is going to bring that to a safe and effective conclusion.
Okay, and so there's a lot of resource here today.
Yes.
How do you justify that in terms of they're not on the front line, they're not doing their normal job? How does that look to the public?
In terms, obviously I can only speak from a fire service perspective.
Yeah.
We make allocation within our service, operational service delivery, to allow a number of appliances to be off the run and still maintain effective service delivery.
Yeah.
I would suggest that is exactly the same for our other blue light partners within police and ambulance service. But there are a lot of volunteers here today as well who are doing this exercise in their own time.
So volunteers from South Wales Fire and Rescue Service?
And police and ambulance. So they've obviously volunteered to come and take part in the exercise within their own time.
I like that phrase, across the bonnet huddle, and to hear that people take part in exercises in their own time. I met a police officer covered in fake blood in the lunch queue where the rapid relief team were on hand to feed the hungry masses. He told me he was there voluntarily because he's in roads policing and it's important to get training like this. It's great to learn about JESIP in action and see how naturally people talk about it, but I'm also interested in another topic, 10 Second Triage. I've been fascinated by how learning from the Manchester Arena bombing has changed practice on the ground. The idea that you could be the first on scene and do a quick assessment of a casualty before the paramedics arrive and classify them as a P1, a P2 or a P3, depending on the seriousness of their injuries and their need for care. I asked Scott about this first. He confirmed that all services were using 10 Second Triage during the exercise and explained how it's been introduced across Wales.
10 Second Triage formally went live in April 2024, so we've been using it for about 18 months now. So lots of training on the build up to that. We're using 10 Second Triage today, and the beauty of that is that the fire service can also undertake 10 Second Triage and the police. And one of our real good points today is, even though the first ambulance on scene was not the first on scene of everything, police were, and police started our 10 Second Triage, so we're just getting ahead of the game that much earlier. And they can do some basic interventions like applying tourniquets or pressure on wounds, those what we're calling life-saving interventions. So that's a real benefit for us, because pressures on ambulance services in the NHS, unfortunately we can't get resources as quickly as we can. So if we do get the police and fire service on scene before us, the ability for them to undertake that prior to our arrival is really important.
Is it business as usual now using it?
I would say it is. We've had a few sort of live incidents, where then maybe small RTCs and stuff, where we've had feedback from staff where they've been the only resource on scene from an ambulance perspective, and police and fire haven't arrived yet, and they've undertaken them 10 Second Triage, and been really good feedback into how quick it is, and that visual key of a tag with a red, a yellow or green is really, really useful for us to give a visual picture, like, right, we have this many P1s and this many P2s, for example.
Sorry about the background noise on that one. I hope you could hear it okay. I picked up the same topic with Roger later as well, asking him whether he agreed with Scott that 10-second triage is business as usual, and also about the value of the evolution of a common language across services that can work so well during multi-agency response.
Relatively new in the sense of obviously the fire service being involved with that aspect of the incident. But that's why this incident and scenario has been designed to allow certainly fire service and police force to carry out 10-second triage to make that more robust in our services, but obviously to assist the ambulance and paramedics and advanced clinicians on scene in providing them the right information for them to do their work when they arrive on scene.
And is 10-second triage business as usual now?
Yes, yeah. It's
so it feels quite natural to them to use it?
Yeah, it's embedded within the service. Obviously that language of P1, P2, P3 has now come through and is embedded, so we'd expect that sort of language to be used when we're communicating, certainly within the JESIP huddles, but certainly when obviously we're passing information back to our respective control rooms.
This episode of the Emergency Services Times podcast is sponsored by MSA Safety, proudly supporting emergency services and first responders on the front line. At MSA Safety, protecting first responders isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We work closely with fire and rescue services across the UK to develop and deliver safety solutions designed to meet your ever-evolving needs. That includes MSA Bristol Firefighter PPE, trusted by services across the UK and beyond, shaped through years of collaboration with frontline teams. It also includes our growing investment in innovation and technology, from the connected M1 SCBA modular solution to our agile, fully managed service model that helps keep crews protected and ready to respond. But for us, safety goes beyond equipment. We believe in standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who dedicate their lives to protecting others, whether it's supporting firefighter charities, backing mental health initiatives, or showing up for community events. MSA is proud to be part of the Emergency Services family. To learn more about our work in the UK and how we're supporting first responders every step of the way, visit www.msasafety.com. With MSA Safety, when you go in, we go in with you.
This point about language is an important one that Tim Johnson talks about. He's here leading the medical student contingent. Coming from the academic world of Cardiff University, he's passionate about giving his students realistic learning to take with them into the start of their medical careers. We met at the Cardiff exercise as well, and I'm interested in his view on 10-second triage, and he offers some learning from the day as we catch up as the exercise wraps. Proudly wearing my own P1 wristband borrowed from a medic, he too has many more in his arms, and I ask him how well he thinks the system works.
Okay, but this exercise, as I said, my phrase with all of these is always it's simulation, not theatre. And so as a simulation for this to work, we want it almost not to work. I think there were limitations today. I could see that some of the triaging stopped at the van.
Yeah.
Didn't go far enough. But actually that's learning. It's really important learning that actually when it's 360, it means it's 360. It's not just we'll stop at the first, the major injuries I see in front of us.
Yeah.
So yes, I think, there's a lot of learning from today.
Yeah.
I didn't see it work perfectly. However, as you can see, I'm collecting all of these on the wrist. It
Yes.
did work.
Yes.
And it's very useful in sort of conveying and of casualties and distributing casualties. But I think there's still lessons learned.
Yes, but in terms of the confidence of fire and police to do that initial stage of triage, do you see their confidence levels having changed in the period that you've been working on through exercises?
Yeah. It's just becoming, and I think the language and the understanding and recognition of what the P1 versus the P3 definitely there.
Yeah.
It's just having that experience of when there is a large incident is perhaps becoming too focused and narrow on the things in front of you.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got to take a drone view, which is your overview, and perhaps and that just comes with experience.
Yes.
And as I say, unless you run exercises like that, people won't have that experience, and it won't get better.
Yeah.
So the more we do this, the better.
Let's move on from 10 Second Triage to hear about debriefing and learning from the exercise. We met Richard Paskell at the start of this episode. He was a busy man during the exercise, but I did manage to talk to him on my way out as he held the fort at the exit point near a busy road, and you'll hear that in the background. I wanted to find out about the debriefing process and what will happen to all the learning from the day.
The most important thing is to capture the feedback. I think for many, many years in the past, we've sort of done incidents, we've sort of high-fived at the end of it, we've had tea and medals, and it's all gone great, so let's all go home. We're in a much better place now. I think so our team, we do what's called a structured debrief. So what will happen is in this process now, up at the top there, where they all are now, they're doing their hot debriefs now. So each of the teams in each of the emergency services spheres are feeding back to their DS staff, their directing staff, on any bits of feedback. They've got hot debrief from there. Then what will happen is they'll all leave site, and then tomorrow afternoon we've got a Teams meeting with all of the SPOCs, so the single points of contact from each of the agencies. We'll all come together and we'll collate all that information together, and that will class the first part of our hot debrief. We will feed all of their debrief into me, and I'll collate that as a hot debrief then. So we have one document with a hot debrief, and then in 3 weeks' time we have what's called a structured debrief, and then all that information that we've got from the hot debrief then we pick through individually, and that's where we get our recommendations from.
Okay, so those recommendations, do they get added to your risk register?
So
other sort of strategic documents to make sure it's part of your day-to-day management of risk?
Yeah, so both. They'll be collated initially for each of the organisations. We put recommendations in for each of the organisations, but we also link this into JOL, which is the Joint Online Learning, which is part of JESIP. So if there's further exercises like this or learning that comes out of this, we can pass those on to the other organisations. So it's making sure that loop is then closed.
Yes.
Like everyone I met at this exercise, they were open to learning and improving. They want to know what works and what doesn't, so that even when it's just a series of small changes, the totality has an impact on public safety. Richard told me just before I hopped into an Uber to go back to the train station that on Monday he was moving jobs and had just 1 year left before retirement. He's impressive, and I loved his enthusiasm and passion for creating this day. This exercise is a great example of teamwork and interagency working that reminds me why we love reporting from this world. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this insight into a multi-agency exercise. You may know lots about it, you may do it regularly, or you may have no experience. Whatever your background, I hope you take something away from this. And as I say in many of our webinars, go and have a chat with someone about it. My thanks to Tim Davis, Scott Walker, Roger McGann, Tim Johnson and Richard Paskell for talking to me mid-exercise. I didn't give any of them any notice, so they did really well to chat with me in the middle of everything. Look out next week for more sessions from the Emergency Services Show and the Emergency Tech Show. All our podcast episodes are sponsored by MSA Safety, and we're so grateful to them for their continued support. My thanks also to Tom St. John for expertly producing this tricky audio episode. I hope the audio trickiness wasn't too difficult to listen to. Be sure to share, like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to For Every Response, the podcast from Emergency Services Times.